How you doing, everybody? This is Brother Ron, Brick by Brick. We back with another episode. I got a special guest for you today. So, it's a young man by the name of Kraig Blue. Just in case you don't know, this man is he's an artiste. He's a musician, and he's an educator. Over 25 years, this man's been traveling the whole country from New York to LA, back and forth. This man has showed his work in D.C. and Louisiana, New Orleans, New York, L.A., many places. And, well, I don't want to bump my gums too much. So without further ado, I'm going to bring to you my brother, Kraig Blue. How you doing, brother?
Always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Indeed. As is, good to see you.
Yes.
So, I told the people a little bit about you.
Yes.
Give a little more detail, exactly. What kind of art do you specialize in?
I started off as a child comic books.
Okay.
So I was a comic book artist. That's how I learned my anatomy and dynamic anatomy and foreshortening, and then I graduated to being an illustrator.
Okay.
I first went to New York Institute of Technology, where I met my beloved fraternity brothers.
Okay.
And I was studying architecture. And then a very good brother of mine said, why don't you just be an artist? And in 1988, I said, okay. And I left New York Tech and looked for a school, and I found Fashion Institute of Technology. I went there
Right in the city?
In the city on 27th Street.
Yes, sir.
And I went there for illustration.
Okay.
And by 91, my parents didn't understand the path of fine arts, so they were like, we're not going to pay for you anymore. We don't have any money. Let's see what you do. And I was like, okay. And since then, I've been illustrating, painting. Now, I just graduated with a BFA in 2016 from
What's BFA?
a Bachelor's of Fine Art.
That's what's up.
And I have my Bachelor's of Fine Art in drawing, painting, and figurative sculpture.
Oh, so you're a triple threat.
Yes. Yes.
I hear that.
Yes.
And because I know a little bit, you continuing your studies.
Yes, I am. I'm now a master's candidate at the Vermont College of Fine Arts for a master's in art teaching and art and design.
There you go.
Yes.
My brother. That's what I'm talking about. I like to hear that.
Yes.
We were just last night
Yes.
at a showing for another illustrator, another graphic designer.
Yes.
Tim Fielder.
Yes.
Are you in that same genre, comic books and things of that nature you work?
In my professional career as an illustrator
Right.
and what I've been published in, I'm more of a realist, figurative artist, portraitist, historical portraiture.
Gotcha.
Particularly dealing with people of color, African Americans, Latino, urban illustrations.
Okay.
So I had contract with Black Heritage greeting cards in the 90s.
Okay.
And I did like a more urban themed illustrations for them. Brothers
That
and
was
sisters.
in Hallmark, right?
They were I believe, a subsidiary company
Right.
of Hallmark.
Yes, sir.
So that was that was very good. I did books, collaborations, and anthologies with other artists and poets in the 90s.
What are some of the names of those books so people can go check them out? Now, you said the 90s, so I don't want you to go too too far back in your recesses.
Yeah. We'll just say I did some books.
How about that?
I don't remember any of the names in particular because I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of work, like a lot of good work, political work, social work.
Okay.
Illustrations for Mumia, things like that. When they were having fundraisers at like the Brooklyn Moon Cafe, when it was poetry and artists, visual artists and poets getting together, drumming and things like that. So yeah, done a lot. Tony Medina, did some collaborations with Tony Medina. I just found out today that I did an illustration for Damon Garrison's book of poetry back in the 90s. So yeah, I've done
So you've done a whole heap of work in this field.
I try to stay busy. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as the education part, where have you taught your craft at?
I first started teaching in after-school programs in 1991 when I'd left FIT and was working on my portfolio, doing exhibitions, and I went back to the school and looked on their job board, and they had a posting for the Children's Aid Society.
All right.
And of course, that jingle played in my mind. I was like, the Children's Aid Society? And I was like, yeah. So I went and interviewed, and that's when I started doing after school art education for like from grades like 3 to like 8.
Okay.
And I just kept on doing it. And then I started working for different art education programs in the city. A program called LEAP, a program called Studio in the School.
Okay.
And then from that, then I got into museum education. So I worked at the Bronx Museum for like 2 years, being a
The one right on the concourse.
right on the concourse.
Yes, sir.
I would give guided gallery tours of current exhibitions and do a little bit of art history, but more facilitate conversation and dialogue with the community, school groups, school age groups, and also adults about art.
Gotcha.
And the Bronx Museum primarily does contemporary art. So, telling people why things are significant, talking about David Hammonds and Sanford Biggers and things like that. And then from that, I went into the Guggenheim because, so I worked at the Bronx Museum and the Guggenheim simultaneously.
Gotcha.
And then the Guggenheim has a larger permanent collection, so
Yes.
then there's more art historical pieces there, but you're still doing the same thing, guided gallery tours and facilitating dialogues and art appreciation for the public.
Okay.
And then I moved to DC
Oh, wow.
for a while, for like 2 years, 2003 to 2005, and I worked at the Montgomery College of Art and Design, which was a 2-year art school, like a preparatory art school for people who wanted to pursue their BFAs. And I was doing continuing ed with high school students and portfolio preparation with high school students and oil painting with adult students.
So you've had your hand in a little bit of everything.
Yes.
That's what's up. I can't be mad at that. So, all right. So that's where you got your start from.
Yes.
That's where you continued.
Yes.
Now, going forward, where do you see your art taking you?
Now that I've included sculpture, figurative sculpture and portraiture with, my skill set, I'm still going to do figurative and portraiture. I'm going to increase the scale of my work and even work on some installations. I was part of a group called NUBO, New Bohemian Renaissance, what we called ourselves, in the early 2000s. And it was like about 7 or 8 artists, and we would organize exhibitions. And we did several exhibitions at the Julia DeBurgo School. And I experimented with an installation, celebrating my mother and my brothers and my family. Okay. So I like installation, so a little bit of both, and then some sculpture. Like I would like to sculpt the people from like the dance Harlem, the dance theater of Harlem.
Yes, sir.
And like Alvin Ailey dancers. Like I would love to sculpt them. That would be like awesome.
And what and clay and bronze and
yes,
and what,
in clay to eventually become bronze pieces.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That's what's up.
different sizes, but definitely, yeah, I'm inspired by the figure. I love the figure.
So now, in your travels, because you've gone across the country, you've gone from different levels, do you see how do I want to word this? Do you see a big amount or a large amount of art people in your industry?
Oh yes. Visual communication, visual artists, graphic designers. I know many artists, visual artists, from FIT, from being an artist that exhibited in Harlem and in Brooklyn, and now across the country, many artists of color, Chicano artists, African American artists in Los Angeles that I'm affiliated with, musicians, because that goes along with the arts,
Yes,
poets.
sir. Indeed.
Like my brother Damon Garrison, poets, Tony Medina. But as far as visual arts, we do have a voice and we do have an aesthetic that is specific to African American, Latino American artists. Sometimes it's filtered through art, historically through European art.
Okay.
And then what happens is many, artists of color reach back to then their own culture and then incorporate their culture's aesthetic
All right.
to then sort of obliterate the European aesthetic, since like people like Pablo Picasso and George Braque, you know, with the whole Cubism thing, and many major art forms were derivative of African and
Indeed.
Mesoamerican
Indeed.
art forms, you know, through geometry and color and things like that. I mean, that's basically where Cubism came from. That was the impetus for George Braque and Pablo Picasso.
All right, we're not a bunch of artists.
Yes.
Explain what Cubism is.
Cubism was an early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century art form.
Okay.
I would say discovered, you know, and evolved with the artists Pablo Picasso and George Braque.
Okay.
In Spain, France, and Pablo Picasso was an art prodigy at a young age, Spanish artist, and him and his friend George Braque. Pablo Picasso, after seeing African sculptures and Mesoamerican sculptures, became inspired, and then started to work from a formalist form of like figurative art into a geometrical form of figurative art. So you have
Gotcha.
you have analytical cubism, and I forget the other name. You have, but analytical cubism, then there's another form of cubism that they both practiced and evolved. And then that led into a huge movement, you know, outside of like Impressionism. You know, then Cubism became this large art movement headed by those two men. And, you know, even Pablo Picasso, if you did ask him, you know, would give reference to the African art that inspired him. You
Gotcha.
know? So many African American artists and Latino American artists today do know their European art history, but then have returned to their indigenous people's history of art, not only for decorative, but also for art as utility, and have used that into their art forms and have infused it into their art forms.
So how does one get a perspective of that African art? Where would one go to get some of these pieces of work and things of that nature, to view them, to touch them, feel them, experience them, without going to South America, without going to Africa and things of that nature?
Well, this is New York. So as a kid, I was born and raised in the Bronx.
Okay.
And in the 70s and 80s. It was rough in the Bronx in the 70s and 80s, you know?
Yes, sir.
And my parents being, you know, basic middle class, blue collar workers, both of them from Georgia, you know, came to live in Harlem, then the Bronx. They wanted us to stay off the streets. They was like, you know, if you're not taking care of anything important if you were hanging on the street corner.
All
So
right.
they stressed education. And I was a child that liked to draw and could spend hours drawing, and they provided me the material to do that. So when I became older, you know, able to get on the train and, you know, go downtown, they were like, go to the museums. I could spend all day in the museums. I could draw, take my pad. So they had African art in museums.
And which museums did you go to?
The Metropolitan
All right.
Museum.
MoMA.
They did actually, I think further downtown, they did have a museum of African art.
Yes, sir.
I think it was like on Broadway or something back in the 90s I used to go to. I love that museum. So any museum that had any art, I would go. And then I got art history from Greek and Roman art, you know, well, starting with African art,
Okay.
you know, Kemetic art, so-called Egyptian art, you know, Kushite art. I would see that, and, you know, the designs and the elaborate, you know, stories, the narratives that the Egyptians
Yes,
told
sir.
were awesome. They left an actual narrative of things that they did.
In their
of
artwork.
Ideologies in the artwork. Like, and I haven't even been to Egypt yet, you know, but it's awesome. It's beautiful. It's storytelling, you know, it's hieroglyphics, it's graffiti. It's the same thing.
Same thing.
I mean, it's the same thing. you
Same
know?
people.
It's the same people, just displaced in another part of the world. It's the same exact thing. You know, Nubians, Kushites, you know, Akibalans have been writing on the walls of their homes and coloring their homes forever.
All right, so now you went to these different museums.
Mm-hmm.
You went to these different parts of the country.
Yes.
Is there a difference in D.C., in Louisiana, and L.A. with the cultural perspective of art than it is in New York? Because New York, everything is here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that same feeling in D.C.? Do you get that same feeling on the West Coast? Even in Vermont, do you get that same feeling there? Like, is New York really the Mecca, or is it Is it everywhere? Well, with the internet nowadays, you know it's everywhere. But I mean, physically, is it everywhere?
Their museums, most of their museums are federally funded. So the National, the Hammer, federally funded. So you can go to those museums for free.
All right.
So I went, saw, who was he? David Hammonds was in the Hammer. I saw pieces by David Hammonds. And DC has a wonderful, they call it Chocolate City for a reason.
Indeed.
It has a wonderful culture with the brothers and sisters there. Go-go music is awesome. I really got to get into go-go music. It's wild. And their art scene, because of Howard,
Right.
so the Black Arts Movement, boom, Howard University, that's my first choice for like getting my MFA, my Master's of Fine Arts, would be Howard University because of the legacy that they have there. Like you go to Yale, you go to Columbia, but Howard University and the Black Arts Movement, it's a beautiful thing, hand in hand. So I love DC, wonderful, wonderful Black arts culture and art culture in general. And then Louisiana, awesome culture, African, French, the people, Mardi Gras, beautiful, it's awesome. And I experienced with a friend of mine who's an artist, his name's Keith Duncan. He was here at Hunter College going for his MFA, Masters of Fine Arts, and we decided to go to Louisiana. So I got not the tourist experience, I got like the family experience.
Gotcha.
So when Mardi Gras starts, or prior to Mardi Gras, which is Fat Tuesday, it starts on the West Bank. And as I say, the West Bank is the best bank.
Is that right?
Yes, that is right. And it starts with the black section, the elders, the high school students, the black cowboys. So it's awesome,
Wow.
And their movement is very colorful, their artists, because of that colorful culture and food. And in LA, I got introduced to the Chicano culture. Like the first people who took me in, who gave me residence as an artist from New York in Los Angeles was in Highland Park, a woman named Rosa Maria Marquez that owned a place called the Rock Rose Gallery. And she did drumming, so I did drumming there, and I learned about the Chicano culture. And that's very strong.
That whole Mesoamerica.
The whole Mesoamerica,
Yes,
like
sir.
they definitely, they are in direct connection. They reach back to their culture and they create art based on that. And lovely work. But then I also like the John Oddbridge, like over at the Watts Towers and the William Grant Art Center. Like I got to go to exhibits there, and meet Michael Massenberg and another artist. What is it? His first name is Charles, but he's a beautiful sculptor. And then my art teacher, her name is Margaret Garcia, and she's a famous Chicana artist.
Okay.
Collected by who's those two cats that they had the pot smoking movie, Cheech and Chong.
Right.
She's collected by Cheech Marin.
Okay.
Like he's a collector of her work. So, and Leimert Park. I got to go to Leimert Park, the seat of
Yes, sir.
of jazz in America, but right there in California. Awesome, and got to see many awesome jazz musicians. My good friend Warberi Jordan, jazz musician. That's how I met the Fielders. When we went
Right.
to Tim's
Yes, sir.
exhibition,
Yes, sir.
his brother Boston worked with Warberi Jordan.
That whole
and-
family is just full of
Exactly, artists and
creators.
musicians.
Yes, sir.
So, and then Tim and Boston's brother, Jim shot Daughters of the Dust. So,
Yes, sir.
do you know what I'm saying? So,
he's actually doing something now with
Exactly.
Lauryn Hill. That's amazing.
exactly. So, I got to meet the Chicana and the Black Arts Movement, and and just the arts movement. I worked at MoCA for a minute. I volunteered at the Museum of Contemporary Art at MoCA. Great museum. I got to talk about the art. So, I saw Santee Gold. First time I ever seen Santee Gold was
All
at
right.
the Museum of Contemporary Art, and I got to go for free. And they had poets, and it's just awesome. Their scene, and it's specific to Los Angeles culture.
Right.
Like, and Los Angeles culture is different than New York culture.
So depending on which area or which region of the country you was in, something indigenous to that region
Yes.
comes out through the art.
Oh, most definitely. Through the art, through the music, through the literature, everything. Yeah. So it was awesome.
That's what's up. All right, so now let's take a step to the left.
Okay.
How can the arts, you silly, How can the arts and whether it be sculpture, or drawing, or graphic design, how can that be a way that us as indigenous people can bring it back around and help find ourselves and help, take us to another level? How do you think art plays a role in that?
We are a visual culture. It's in our DNA. We are a visual and musical culture. The first writing is art. Writing is a form of art.
Okay.
Writing your name is a form of art. It's a form of swordplay. It's a form of logic. It's a form of symbol formation and recognition. For us, the one thing that we have been lacking, that I've noticed in being a teacher and working in public schools, is stronger visual art programs, stronger art programs. Because visual communication is very, very important.
Okay.
For its symbology. It creates ideologies throughout the world. It creates culture. It is a form of communication, a silent form of communication that has weight. And our children need to understand the weight of visual communication, and then how it's also being used to affect behavior and move culture and attitudes. It's very important what we see. We're surrounded by visual communication all the time.
Indeed.
An artist did that. A cartographer did that. Your flag, that was David Hammons, who did that flag based on Marcus Garvey.
Yes, sir.
David Hammons then reappropriated the concept of the black, red, and green, the national flag, and created that flag.
Indeed.
It moves everything. Television, the images move everything.
Yes, sir.
Through the music. The reason people dress is because of what they've seen, how they've seen. The patterns on your dashiki is art on this table. This is textile art.
Indeed.
So there's art all around us, and we do need to be able to control that, because the
visual
aspect, because it forms ideas silently, and that's unconsciously.
So let me ask you this.
And that's important.
What we usually do here is I ask the guests a question, right?
Sure.
In our community, what we need a code of conduct, right?
Yes.
So you were talking about
agree.
the children and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So one or two things that you would think that us as a people need as a code of conduct, whether it be something small like women walking on the inside, or whether it be something big like collective economics.
Okay.
What are one or two codes of conduct that you think that we need to adhere to in our community?
Speaking and being more compassionate towards one another, being very mindful of our personal conduct towards each other.
Okay.
I think that's very important. And rites of passage for our boys and girls to truly become adults.
Indeed.
Not based on the American ideal, the so-called American ideal of being an adult, like 18 and then 21 you can drink.
You can vote, you can drink, you
Exactly.
can run for president.
Exactly. That's not the ideals that we need to be focused on. We need to instill rites of passage for our children, evolved from the rites of passage from our continent, to create more mindful, more evolved adults and human beings for our community. That's one of the things that I would like to see implemented. And it has been, but more, on a larger collective scale, across the country, across the globe.
My brother. I appreciate you. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
We're going to have to have you
It was
back.
a great interview.
We're going to have to have you back.
Thank you.
Time
It's
is
been a
running
pleasure.
little. Listen,
I appreciate it. I really do.
we may have to do this from your exhibit next time.
Sure.
How about that?
That would be awesome.
So everybody, what's the website?
My website is www.kraig with the K, Kraig, blue, like the color, blue.com. My name.
KraigBlue.com.
KraigBlue.com.
Kraig with a K.
Kraig with the K.
There There you go. Not Kraig from Fridays.
Not Kraig from Fridays, no. My mother, unbeknownst to her, but feeling her African DNA without even knowing, she took the Celtic name Kraig, Scottish name Kraig, which means like rock or crag, you know, depth or profundity, and she changed it with a K. And I just found out that all boys in the Akan, you know, West Africa, the Akan people, all boys born on Wednesday, the letter K is the first to their names.
You were born on a Wednesday.
And I was born on a Wednesday. So I just told my mother that. She was like, I was like, look at you tapping into your Kemetic, your Nubian DNA.
That's what I'm talking about.
You changed, you know,
without
Kraig,
even knowing it.
without even knowing, into a K. So I'm Kraig with the K and blue like the color.
This is Kraig Blue. Check him out. KraigBlue.com. My brother, thanks for having you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
We will have you again.
Thank you.
This is Brother Ron, Brick by Brick. Another episode in the can. We see you later. Peace and blessings. See this right here? This is that fire right here. All right? This is the design by a brother called Naj Mahal. All right? Him and his partner, Paris Torian. This is the War Report line. You see what I'm saying? This right here, you need to get you one of these. What's that group? Eiffel Life? I'm telling you, these two brothers, they out here, they got their line. Y'all see the joint, looking kind of fresh. First and foremost, what I would say is that if we in our community don't assist each other and help each other with the things that we do, what's the sense of doing it, all right? How you doing, everybody? This is Brother Ron, Brick by Brick. We back with another episode.
Just come to the X and find somebody like my G right here,
Indeed.
or my G right here. Niggas know how to get at us.
Someone told me, he said, I'm paraphrasing. I don't solve my problems. I change my mind state and my problems solve themselves. So that sounds like what you're saying. So you love yourself and realize that there's nobody better than you and you're better than nobody and these things will fall into place.
Absolutely. That's what we're doing. That's what this platform is for. That is what it's all about.
This is black power at work.
That's right.
This is black empowerment at work. This is black independence at work. So I'm glad y'all got all this. I hope you tune in. Watch Brick by Brick with my brother Ron Bethea as he breaks it down layer by layer as we put it together. Black power, baby. Peace and love.